Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bruce Hughes, Chair. This is the Abington Affordable Housing Trust Committee meeting for September. It's Monday, September 8th at 5 p.m. in the Abington Town Hall Ware Room. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Right there, flag's right there. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everyone. Mike, we've got the minutes. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Everybody had a chance to look at them?
Yep.
You did a great job. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing it tonight.
Yeah, I got a recording and I'll also write them down.
I had to do my last church council minutes from memory because I didn't bring anything with me. But anyway, I've been doing that for a long time. Let's just, talk about it. Proposal for Abington Center and North Schools, RFP out. Pam saw a 12-unit plan. Project updates, the friendly, it's 44B, Summer Street, 5 stories. That thing has really come along. I go by there every week and it's good.
Yeah,
Still
and
not,
every 18-wheeler and construction vehicle goes by my
Oh, my
house and just hits every pothole in the
Oh, my
road.
gosh.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
yeah, that's really moving along.
Can't get out of my driveway.
They got a security, I should have got not security gig. I see the guy sitting in that yard.
There you go.
We haven't seen any updates on 161 North Quincy Street. Haven't heard anything about that, and haven't heard anything about the, I know there was a proposal to go into Glenwood Points project, but it said it only works if the developer, if it's 5-story, and we stipulated it could only be 3 stories in the MBTA district, and there's also wetlands issues, so you know what's gonna happen with that. On Zero Summer Street, we just talked about that, it's 50 units affordable, and the High Street property auction, environmental study, special election, September 19th papers, Mike's pulled papers, and we're meeting tonight.
So I saw on the notes also, we talked about last time, we're now above the 10%. I think we were at like 7 when I joined. Does that mean that they're built and finished, or does that just mean that the property has been purchased and going to be developed?
Well, for example, the 160 on North Quincy Street, right?
161.
161. Now, Pam, you were on the committee when they presented, right?
Yeah.
I think they're in the permitting process for that and stuff like that, so that's not gonna go on. What's your opinion, Jason?
So, I was going to talk a little bit about it now.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jason DeRozier, Senior Planner for Housing and Public Engagement, Old Colony Planning Council Project Lead on the Housing Production Plan update. 40B is a moving target. It's 10% of your year-round housing stock that's determined or designated to be affordable. The more development you see, that number changes, right? And so, if there are single-family homes that are developed, if there's some more apartment buildings, that number will change. So you're 10% as of today, right?
Yeah.
But a year from now, 2 years from now, depending on development that happens in town, that number could change, which then means you have to,
But I guess my question is, does the place is built to completion that we count it, or just when we sign that, like, it's gonna be developed, like, does anyone know what determines that?
Certificate of occupancy, I believe.
Okay.
Some might be building permits, but I think largely it's certificate of occupancy. I can
just
go back and
curious.
check.
And Pam had a question earlier. You wanna repeat that to Jason, please?
Oh, what the determination was?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it down because I never remember. It's actually on the Conservation Committee's agenda tomorrow. Determination of applicability to convert vacant school to 20 residential units. So that's on there for North School and Center School.
Is that in your wheelhouse, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of planning language, that just, to me, sounds like they're just doing the due diligence to determine whether or not it could be used as 20 units of house, to turn that, so right, it's.
That's what I thought, but nobody seemed to know. We asked somebody from the.
And if it's on
from
the Conservation
from
Commission's
Conservation.
agenda,
Yeah.
wondering if there's it's on conservation land, which Or if
I
there's
think
sort of
it's-
like buffers around it, which
Oh,
then
yeah,
would put
there's
it
all
on.
woods around.
All right, then that might be
the
why
field
it's on the
and everything,
Conservation
But
Commission.
it's north and center, and north is just an empty.
Yeah, they're probably just doing the due diligence, so have going to the various boards and commissions to see if they could do those plans.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you, Jason, appreciate it. And hasn't been any correspondence. So we're gonna put Jason on. He's just introduced himself. He's gonna give us updates for the new Abington Housing Production
Perfect,
Plan.
thank you.
All right, thank you. It's been a little bit of time since I had the opportunity to speak with you all around the housing production plan. I think the first time I came was when we were first in the beginning processes, before the survey was done. The survey has been closed. There's been an extensive analysis that was done. I did share that analysis with members of the Affordable Housing Trust, in addition to a long list menu of options of different strategies the town could use to create and preserve housing and affordable housing. With the understanding that the town, as of today, is above the 10% threshold. It's like 10.10% on the subsidized housing inventory for 40B. And sort of looking at the survey responses in terms of where folks sort of prioritized and or would support or would not support different sort of housing strategies. I have drafted the Abington HPP implementation plan. So this is essentially the 5-year plan or roadmap for the town as well as the Affordable Housing Trust over the next 5 years. I wanted to sort of review this with you all to get your sort of questions, comments, and concerns on the strategies that are being sort of proposed, so that this is a collaborative effort versus me as a planner working at 10,000 square feet or 10,000 foot view, sort of saying
Or
this
70
is
school-
what we think is best for the town, right?
Or 70 School Street involved.
Exactly. So just some
You wanna go point by point on this, Jason?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what came from the survey is that the top 3 concerns were rising housing costs across the board. There's not enough options for seniors to age in community, age in place, and there's not enough affordable homes for sale. The median home sale in Abington in 2024 was just over $540,000. So, and that's the median, right? And so many are selling above that. And so really trying to look at how to offer more affordable home ownership opportunities. The preferred housing types were ADUs, townhomes, and duplexes. So sort of smaller footprint, smaller scale housing types. And then sort of the top 3 or 4 sort of most underserved populations of Abington, according to the survey responses, were young families, and particularly first-time homebuyers. Again, seniors looking to age in place, people with disabilities, and Abington workers, sort of the local workforce.
You wanna explain to the folks watching at home, what is an ADU, please?
Accessory dwelling unit. They were legalized due to the Affordable Homes Act, signed by Governor Healy late or mid last year. ADUs as a zoning, as housing type, went into effect in February of this year. So essentially, it's accessory dwelling, so it can be part of your home, an extension of your home, or detached in the backyard. Essentially 900 square feet, or half of the square footage of the primary living residence, whichever is small.
And according to town planner Liz Shea, I'm on chair of the planning board, there has been a number of these in Abington already, yeah.
Yep. And so the way this is set up, this document here, there's short-term strategies, there's mid-term strategies, and there's long-term strategies. This is a 5-year plan, so they're all essentially short-term. However, some are foundational, others are scaling up, and then some are bigger investments that will go beyond the 2030. That will probably be in place when your housing production plan needs to be updated again in 2030. And so there are 9 goals that are identified. What would be helpful is if there are things you like, or particularly red flags, things that you think might be problematic, things that you think might be missing, etc., etc. Goal 1, expand and diversify housing through zoning tools. So for short term, launch ADU homeowner support program, providing things like guides, workshops, and pre-approved plans so that people have the ability to sort of get educated and be aware of ADUs. There are communities and municipalities that do provide sort of like template plans so that you don't have to like, it cuts down on the cost of building an ADU if you have like a catalog of types. Sears used to sell homes in their catalog, similar to
I
that.
remember seeing.
We can kind of go through and flip through a book and say the floor plans, the styles, so on and so forth. Track new development in the 3A district and publish annual reports.
Could you explain what a 3A district is, please?
Yep, MBTA communities, Abington.
Abington voted to accept that.
Yep.
Yes.
What was that? 2 years?
Couple of years
Year
ago.
ago,
Yes.
year and a half
Yeah.
ago. Voted to adopt sort of the MBTA communities requirement from the state. And so this would just be tracking the development. Any development that could potentially happen, the way that the district is sort of situated limits, I think, the development that could happen. And so there may or may not be anything to do with that. Convene developer roundtables on 3A use and barriers. And so if developers find it difficult to develop housing in the 3A district, what might that be? Having some roundtables. And then support planning board with 3A compliance and outreach. Midterm, refine site plan review with design guidelines, accessibility and affordability incentives. A little bit more on that later. Begin exploring zoning for starter homes and diverse ownership options. This is something that I heard pretty frequently in the survey. Are you familiar with 40Y
Explain,
as
please.
zoning? 40Y was established in 2022, and it's really zoning for smaller single-family homes. And so a 40Y district would be zoned at a minimum of 4 units per acre. There are no sort of acre requirements in terms of how the size of the district. Towns get a zoning incentive payment for adopting a 40Y zoning district, and so the state gives you money for adopting a district. And then every home that's built is part of the 40Y. There's an additional sort of payment that's provided for that. The homes are smaller, maybe, than some of the newer single-family homes that are being built. It's 1,850 square feet of heated, livable space. And they're really designed, I mean, they're called starter homes, but they're really designed, for young families first starting out in the home ownership journey, or seniors looking to downsize, which is why they're smaller. And so exploring sort of zoning for starter homes, and then long-term for this one, evaluate zoning effectiveness and pursue additional refinements, such as if the town would be interested in pursuing potentially inclusionary zoning, which is a percentage of affordable units within a market rate development. Anything sort of stick out as red flags, questions, comments, concerns, things you wish could be included in there?
Well, I like the 40Y. I know in the town of Easton, I just remember years ago there was a proposal for that. It was over by the old foundry site. I think something was built on. And I don't know if we had the land for that in Abington. We're pretty built out.
I was kind of thinking about this after you guys had the meeting. I was on the call. We were talking about it. And when I lived at the Air Force Base in Weymouth, they had an area that was basically like cottages. And one of the things they said in the survey was there's no like central area in town. There's no. So I was thinking like if we take like the school that's not built up right now, they could like take it and then build like a little community of like basically like cottages with a little, little thing for people to live. I don't know the feasibility, but I think it's an option that could be really cheap houses. And like he was saying, the state would subsidize some of it, or they would pay into the. I just think one option for first-time home buyers to make like a smaller 18,000 square feet village of cottages or something.
But not everybody has to live in a great big house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, My wife and I, we'd love to downsize. You know,
Yeah.
we live in a very big house, but there aren't many opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not talking tiny houses, but tiny houses are like
No, I don't wanna hit
increasingly
tiny
popular
houses.
now. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people don't mind downsizing if it fits their lifestyle.
If they're living in an 1,800, 2,000 square foot house, you know, downsized to like 580, 700 square feet, that would be a lot
And
smaller.
I think something like the thing I'm mentioning too is like it's not a ton of yard space, and I don't think a lot of people require a lot of yard space unless they have like dogs or something. I think a lot of people are okay with, you know, sharing a community area that's kind of like.
I personally like that as opposed to, I mean, I'm a senior, so I get mail from the place over in Weymouth, you know, the older houses and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah. The ones in Weymouth, it's set up. Everything in that Air Force Base is super expensive.
Yeah.
But like, I think the idea is more affordable than it is over there.
Yeah, it is. That's wicked expensive and you have to buy in.
Yeah.
So,
And the bullet for starter homes doesn't say, you know, do anything more than begin exploring the option of doing it, right? And so if this plan ends up getting adopted and approved by the state, your first step would be to sort of like look at a zone map and say like, where could we essentially do this? And if there isn't anywhere, you say, we did that, check, right?
Yep.
And so it doesn't say you have to establish 40Y. It's like, explore the feasibility. I'm working with the town of Whitman currently, initially to sort of pursue 40R and 40Y zoning. At looking at the map, what's not built out already is wetlands and sort of like constrained land, and so we weren't able to pursue 40Y. But we did our due diligence to sort of see if it was possible, and that's all that bullet really says. Goal 2, provide housing options for seniors and aging in place, and it says / aging in community. There's this sort of it's not tension, but sort of discussioning happening around whether or not we should be saying aging in place or aging in community. Aging in place makes it sound like people are aging like in isolation in place, and you really want to build up community around people, and so the planning sort of terminology is changing a little bit. So that's why I provided both. For the short term, inventory senior designated public housing for accessibility and energy efficiency needs. Apply for EOHLC, which is the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the federal department, capital funds for upgrades to choose senior designated public housing units and promote ADUs in townhomes as aging-friendly housing options. And then for this one, midterm, launch an aging in place design program for accessibility retrofits in private homes, and advanced development of small scale senior housing, potentially within the 3A district. Long term, continue phase rehabilitation of senior housing, and I'll get to that one in a little bit, with the 2 goals from now, and evaluate opportunities for additional age friendly housing partnerships, whether it's Habitat for Humanity or other organizations.
Jason, can I just send your colleague Joanne Zegman from Larry Munsey's department over at Old Colony Planning Council talked about elderly stuff, Alzheimer's communities and stuff like that.
Yep.
Plan.
Dementia friendly planning. Yep.
Yeah, you want to talk about that? I mean, a little bit, just a tiny bit, if it relates to housing.
Yeah, so that's a little bit outside of my because dementia friendly planning does have something to do with all the spaces in which older adults might sort of find themselves in. Housing certainly fits that bill, and it's really around sort of universal design. And so the focus of universal design is that you build housing for people that they can be born in a unit and, you know, at some sort phase out of life within the same unit, right? That they don't have to move unless they want to. With that, people sort of have natural decline, whether it's in their health, their vision, their hearing, maybe dementia, Alzheimer's, so on and so forth. So how do we sort of plan for those aspects within a housing unit as well? So it really focuses on the design of the building so that people don't necessarily get lost, right? In their apartment, in their housing unit, in their home, and really how do we design with that in mind? it's sort of a new way of planning, and so there's a lot of sort of research going into it. A lot of communities in Massachusetts, including Kingston currently, who's working with Old Colony Planning Council on a age-friendly and dementia-friendly sort of planning document, master plan of sorts. I'm meeting with Joanne tomorrow actually to talk about how it fits in with the housing context. So if this meeting was Wednesday, I would have had a better answer for you. But it's about how do we design universally and in a way that as people sort of have cognitive decline or dementia, that they're sort of still able to remain in place.
Yeah, Joanne, I think I'm going to invite her to the next meeting. If this is, if she go along with it. This is great. But I guess working with like 3 communities right now. I know actively Kingston, but a lot of communities are doing it. Duxbury, yeah, a lot of communities are doing it on their own, like Brockton and stuff like that. But I think our discussion is housing and elderly housing and stuff like that. So I think it'd be appropriate to invite her to our next meeting.
Definitely.
It sound like interest to you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, thanks.
Yep. Any thoughts on goal 2?
I don't think so.
I think that, inventory senior designated public housing for accessibility and energy efficiency needs. It's too bad that Ellen isn't still on it because she's, on the housing board and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to talk. I think Brockton Housing Authority, Tom Tebow, runs the elderly housing in Abington and stuff like that. And it would be interesting to get what their take is, the Abington Housing Authority.
So as part of this process, the research and the survey process, I did have a couple of focus groups with tenants at the Abington Housing Authority, I toured a couple of the units, and then talked to staff at the Abington Housing Authority just to get their sense and their priorities and their needs, which I will say do make up a number of the sort of strategies and the strategies specifically and activities, because Abington, since you are at that 10%, you don't necessarily have to build any more affordable units under 40B as of right now. And so it gives you an opportunity to sort of take a look at what other housing needs are not being met by 40B.
Right.
Specifically public housing, the public housing units, home ownership, smaller, maybe for sale, somewhat market, but below market, smaller homes. It provides an opportunity to sort of take a look at some of those things so you're not sort of always focused on the 40B part.
Right.
Yeah, the existing senior housing in Abington is old. I can say that, it's not brand new. And like I say, we could get Ellen to come back and do a presentation on that here too. All
Well,
right.
there's property available, but they don't know if it's wetlands.
Yep.
And Ellen was looking into that at one point when she was on our committee, to look and see if that was, feasible to put more
Yeah.
buildings.
And then that's part of goal 4. With goal 3,
On we go.
create affordable home ownership opportunities. Short term, prepare affordable housing trust guidelines for first generation home buyer assistance. Partner with regional housing agencies and lenders for home buyer workshops. Midterm, launch affordable housing trust first time home buyer program with the goal of supporting 3 to 5 households per year. Use affordable housing trust funds to pilot mixed income home ownership on a town owned parcel. So that would be developing affordable home ownership. Advanced zoning changes to enable townhomes, duplexes, and 40Y starter homes. And develop deed restriction monitoring program for affordable home ownership. So if you have a unit that's for sale that's designated affordable, there have to be deed restrictions to sort of keep it as affordable. So that's what that one's about. And then long term, explore local property tax relief for income eligible first time buyers. Expand small scale infill and condo development partnerships, again, to provide those smaller scale home ownership opportunities. In talking with Bruce and a couple of the folks, it appears that the Affordable Housing Trust does have some funds available. There's ways to increase those funds, and then really thinking about how those funds are used to provide the maximum benefit.
Right.
One way of looking at that is through supporting, other than developing, is supporting a first-time homebuyer program. They're NeighborWorks Housing Solutions of Southeastern Mass. They're sort of based out of Brockton or Quincy. They have an office in Brockton, an office in Kingston, and they do first-time homebuyer classes. And so it's like, how could the Abington Affordable Housing Trust partner with them to sort of send Abington residents who are interested in buying a home there, or they also do virtual home buyer sort of workshops. When you take a home buyer assistance program, that then connects you to down payment assistance and other sort of like affordable, home ownership sort of lending products that might not be available to others that don't take a first-time home buyer class. And so that's a way to sort of maximize the funding that the Affordable Housing Trust has to support home ownership.
As far as, it's funny, I'm on the Community Preservation Act Committee, we're meeting tomorrow night, and, one of the things they have, well, it's open space and recreation, historic preservation, and housing. And every year, the CPA committee appropriates, what, $250,000? I think we've gotten them up to that since, for that, so we've accrued a certain amount of money. Now there was a question at town meeting in the fall, about CPA and stuff. Is it a tax? It's not a tax on people, it's not part of the town budget and stuff like that. Could you explain, Jason, for the audience, how CPA funding works as far as the real estate sales and stuff like that? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure of the specific Abington percentage. It's probably, if I had to guess, 1%.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So if someone's looking at their property tax bill, you'll notice a small surcharge for Community Preservation Act. It's based off of, the value of your home minus the first $100,000. This is a formula. Certain homeowners are, from what I would understand, or what I would assume for Abington specifically, are sort of don't pay it, whether they're sort of like a low-income homeowner, if they're, income eligible, or a senior. There's a couple of classifications of homeowners that wouldn't pay into the surcharge, but essentially that money is collected and put into the Community Preservation Act Trust Fund, and 10% of the sort of funds have to be sort of geared towards affordable housing. 10% are sort of earmarked for historical preservation projects, and another 10% are earmarked for open space improvements. And then the town, probably via the select board, the Community Preservation Committee, sort of determine where that remainder 70% go. So there are some communities that sort of target a majority of that 70% towards open space, or a majority of it towards affordable housing. And so it all depends on, but residents and organizations, developers can apply for funds that then go before the CPC, and they vote and sort of designate funds that.
Thank you for explaining to the television viewing audience. Okay, let's go on.
Goal 4, preserve and reinvest in public and affordable housing. Short term, conduct comprehensive capital needs assessment of Abington Housing Authority properties. Apply for Public Housing Innovation Demonstration Program, or PHIDP funds, to leverage redevelopment capital. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I review this goal. Begin tracking expiring use properties for preservation. I have to do a little bit of looking, but Abington might have a couple of current affordable units that might be expiring in the near future, and so you want to make sure that you preserve those, so you don't end up in a situation where you're losing housing that's currently affordable.
Right.
Midterm, launch phase rehabilitation projects with CPA funds, Affordable Housing Trust funds, and mass housing support. Develop public housing redevelopment plan with tenant engagement, and evaluate town-owned and Abington Housing Authority sites for infill and mixed income redevelopment. And in long term, undertake mixed finance redevelopment projects through PHIDP or similar sort of funding programs, and preserve or expand affordability on expiring use and deed restricted property. So as part of my research for the housing production plan, I did take a look at the housing authority sites. As I said, multiple sort of focus groups toured a couple of units, talked a lot to Abington Housing Authority staff and tenants. There are about 109 units in the Abington Housing Authority portfolio. As of today, there are approximately 23,000 households on the Abington Housing Authority waitlist. There are 8,066 applicants for the senior units, and there are 15,695 families on the waitlist for the family units, which are largely voucher housing choice voucher units. For the elderly units, the ratio is approximately 74 people to every 1 unit. And for the family units, it's approximately 7,848 people to every single sort of voucher unit that's in the community. So there's an acute need for housing at that level, right? Specifically for seniors, because they're a population that is not readily served by public housing as much as maybe families, depending, because I'm sure these 15,000 families are probably on multiple wait lists across the region. And so when you look at this, there's opportunities through the PHIDP program, which are state funds to redevelop and rehabilitate senior housing. There's other programs that would allow us, that would leverage sort of private funding sources to develop mixed income housing. And so if, for example, is it Lincoln that's over here on Shire Ave? If they wanted to redevelop that one by doing some sort of like market rate and then which would then cross subsidize the affordable, you could maximize the number of affordable public housing units and do some sort of not luxury housing, but what would be sort of determined as like workforce and middle income housing to be able to get some additional affordability over there. The units are also very small. They were built in, I think, the 1970s. They were not built for, at the time, they were not built for people, I don't believe, living as long as we do now. And so you might have a senior who moves in there at 60. They're living there 80, 90 years old. Maybe they're not as mobile and they're living on an upstairs unit. And there's no other unit on the ground floor to sort of relocate them to. And so if you're able to expand the number of units, you could potentially have additional units to sort of move people and make it more accessible.
I just have a quick question. I worked for the old colony planning council for 30 years. I did the housing, utility allowances, stuff like that. And I got to know how many Section 8 certificates each town has. Now, if you're in Brockton, if you're on that list, you don't have to live in Brockton for that. You could live in any community. I'm sure in Abington. How does this, is this related to the Section 8 certificates, or, how does it differentiate from them? Or as far as, presumably, elderly people, they are low income and stuff like that, and they probably would be eligible for Section 8 units, stuff like that. You want to discuss a little bit of that? If I'm not completely off track.
No, if I understand your question. So the two housing authority developments, Shaw Ave and Levitt, are specifically for seniors and disabled.
That's right.
You have to either be a senior and or disabled to get into one of those units. So that sort of is the category of the 8,066 that are sort of on the applications for, or that are on the wait list for the 109 sort of housing authority units. The housing authority also manages vouchers. So in this case, it would be mobile vouchers, which there's two forms of vouchers. There's a tenant-based voucher and there's a project-based voucher. Project-based vouchers are attached to a unit. And so if I'm, I don't know, let's say an older adult, and I move into a development, a unit over at Levitt, which has a project-based voucher, I benefit from a lower rent in that unit as long as I live there. Once I move, I lose the affordability because it's attached to the unit.
Okay.
There are other vouchers that are tenant-based vouchers or mobile vouchers that people take with them. We think of these as mobile Section 8s. When we think of Section 8 that's largely mobile. The wait list for Section 8 is really long because as housing costs increase, people are qualifying for Section 8 who wouldn't have otherwise, right? Because housing costs are, people's pay are sort of going down and or stagnating, and costs keep going up, right? And so people who might not have qualified for Section 8 20 years ago now do qualify because incomes are not increasing with housing costs or costs of living in general. And so the wait lists are growing. With the project or the mobile vouchers, that's the 15,000 people that are on the 15,000 households, the families that are on the because there are housing units in Abington that the landlords do accept vouchers. And so those housing vouchers are accepted in the private market. And so we don't know exactly like which units those are, or really how many of them there might be. I'm trying to sort of dig into that currently. That's not publicly available information, as you know, some of the project-based voucher information is. But I would say, in doing the math, of the 7,000, whatever it is to one, that there's probably less than 20 homes in the private market that accept vouchers. And so I would say that even if you got a voucher, a tenant voucher, you probably would not be able to use it in Abington.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. It's good, it's good for people to know this, because people will hear housing certificates or Section 8 certificates and stuff like that, and it's good to have a professional planner explain it in a way that people could comprehend it. Thank you.
Goal 5, support vulnerable and underserved populations. Short term, establish partnerships with service agencies for supportive housing models. Begin exploring regional emergency rental assistance options. So that might be sort of a program that the Affordable Housing Trust could support through if you had someone that might be experiencing short-term job loss or an injury and need sort of like emergency rental assistance. Could Abington Housing Trust funds be used to provide sort of like short funds to be able to provide people with, you know, a month's rent or a month's sort of like mortgage payment, right? Now you would need a system in place to determine like who qualifies, sort of like the loan, the determination, is it a grant, is it a loan? Different trust funds sort of approach it in different ways. For midterm, allocate affordable housing trust funds for supportive housing and innovation grants. Pilot co-location of housing with service delivery sites so that people have wraparound services where they live if they need them. Long-term, expand supportive housing initiatives based off of those pilot results. And continue targeted investments for veterans, disabled residents, and extremely low-income households who would probably be most in need of a supportive housing sort of option or model. Sort of just to go through the rest of these, and we can just open them all up for conversation. Goal 6, guide housing to walkable, transit-oriented areas. Identify and issue RFPs for redevelopment of priority town-owned sites that fit within that sort of designation. Assess infrastructure needs and funding opportunities through MassWorks and One Stop. For midterm, advance redevelopment of vacant and underutilized sites within 3A in town center districts. Now I know that there's a sort of discussion around like where the town center is. Abington has 2 sort of areas that might sort of be
I've
determined.
lived this town all my life. There's 2 town centers, North Abington and Abington.
But I think there's opportunity specifically around what is that? North Central Street?
North,
Yeah.
North Ave.
North Ave, specifically, and sort of really sort of think about how to make that more of a walkable sort of, not necessarily transit oriented because it's not super close, I don't think, to the train, but make it so it's more walkable, safer for pedestrians. I know that there's a concern around walking and sort of being around that area, so there might be opportunity there. And explore zoning for small scale mixed use along Route 18.
I went to a presentation. I don't know if did you go to that presentation, Pam? It was at Martin's Bakery.
I did not.
And they talked about, redevelopment of North Abington Center as far as storefronts and stuff like that, and it was pretty well attended and stuff like that. So I'm sure you're aware of that, Jason. Yeah, so.
And then for long term is really around sort of looking at infrastructure upgrades that would be tied to new housing, and expand mixed use and infill projects aligned with 3A zoning. Goal 7. This I think came out of conversation that I had specifically with Liz, Kevin, and members of the Affordable Housing Trust around strengthen and operationalize the Affordable Housing Trust. And so one of the goals from 2019's housing production plan was establish an Affordable Housing Trust. Well, you all did that, right? So after you've been established, like where can you sort of look to next? And so for short term, finalize and implement the Affordable Housing Trust strategic plan and project scoring rubric. That was a project that Judy Barrett worked with the Affordable Housing Trust on.
Yeah.
Establish a housing opportunity fund using CPC or community preservation funds and other sources. Explore new revenue streams such as tax titles, lease revenues, mitigation fees, etc., and develop housing. So this one I understand towns all over the place are experiencing budget shortages. So this one is one that's just sort of been considered. It probably wouldn't happen. I just put it in here just as a placeholder, but there's ways of sort of this short term is around how do you sort of deepen the chest of Affordable Housing Trust funds that you can then sort of turn around and lend out and do sort of affordable housing and other projects with. Midterm, begin proactive acquisition of priority parcels, so trying to acquire parcels if there's any available. Partner with developers and non-projects to bring projects forward, similar to the Habitat for Humanity project you worked with them on.
We'll talk about that later on.
And expand trust member training and peer learning. And then long-term, evaluate outcomes of Affordable Housing Trust investments and update the strategic plan. And institutionalized annual action plans and reporting as it is required for the Affordable Housing Trust. Goal 8, advance housing equity and fair housing. For the short term, add fair housing resources to the town website and permitting materials. Partner with South Shore Housing. That should be NeighborWorks Housing Solutions of Southeastern Mass. And legal aid groups for outreach. For the midterm, incentivize universal design, which is what I talked about previously, and accessibility within new developments. It's hard to design universally if a building's already been built, right? Because doorways aren't wide enough, so et cetera, et cetera. And so as new projects come forward, how are you sort of pushing developers to include universal design in their projects? And then expand landlord outreach to increase voucher acceptance. In Massachusetts, it is illegal for a landlord to not rent to a Section 8 voucher holder because they are a Section 8 voucher holder. They're a protected class. However, and I grew up in a house, my grandmother had a Section 8 voucher, which was one of the reasons why we were able to move out of a city and urban environment into Plymouth, because we found a landlord that welcomed, or at least took Section 8 vouchers.
Section 8 vouchers are mobile.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts, having opportunity that I probably wouldn't have had living in the neighborhood I lived in previously. With that said, there are and so there is benefit for that sort of situation. With that said, there are many other reasons why a landlord might decide not to rent to a Section 8 voucher holder. It could be that it's a family, young children, haven't tested for lead, don't want to test for lead, you can't rent to a Section 8 voucher holder if you think there's lead in the unit. And so they'll just say, even though under the surface they're not renting to this family because they have a Section 8, they're able to sort of discriminate against them because of the lead paint issue. All right, or there's a lot of other reasons. And so how do we work with landlords across the region, Abington, or so on and so forth, to increase voucher? Because with vouchers, that's a guaranteed rent payment, right? You get your rent guaranteed, and so there is incentives, I suppose, or reasons to rent to someone with a mobile voucher, because you have that, right? And so really thinking about how we move that forward, and then long term, monitor and evaluate fair housing complaints, access and outcomes, and integrate equity considerations into zoning and comprehensive planning updates. And lastly, Goal 9, build community awareness and engagement on housing. This came up a couple of times in terms of people's interest in sort of having conversations around housing. So for short term, launch a housing education campaign, and there is a section in the housing production plan that talks about what does affordable housing look like. And the whole point of this sort of section is to say all housing needs to be affordable to somebody, right? Whether it's sort of like a single family home, multifamily, and so on and so forth. So having conversations around what does affordable mean in Abington. Develop accessible educational materials such as handouts, zoning map guides, and videos. Host a housing roundtable with the Affordable Housing Trust, Planning Board, CPC, and Housing Authority to have conversations around housing needs and priorities in Abington. Midterm, organize walking tours and site visits of local housing types. Partner with schools and youth programs on housing education projects. Launch storytelling campaigns and feature resident housing journeys. And long-term maintain an ongoing civic engagement toolkit and workshops. And evaluate accessibility of public meetings. So like, doing hybrid meetings, offering childcare and interpretation, if needed.
I don't think Abington did have hybrid meetings in time of COVID, but I don't think we have hybrid meetings anymore. I mean, of course, all these meetings are taped and available on YouTube and stuff like that, but as far as remote participation, now I'm on Mass Planners Listserv, the new and improved, thanks to my friend Alan. But a lot of towns still have hybrid meetings and stuff like that. So, maybe that's something, town board should discuss tonight, so go ahead.
So, do these goals look right? The strategies themselves might change depending on sort of how the rest of the plan is written and sort of what additional information comes through or gets developed. But overall, in terms of the goals, are these the right goals? What's missing? What's not included here? Any red flags and things that should not be considered in the housing production plan?
How do these goals compare to the last housing production plan? I didn't bring it with me tonight.
Yep, so please hold. I will get it with you in 1 second.
I'm making you work tonight.
That's fine.
Because I've been in your spot, and they made me work when I presented before town.
Housing production plan.
This is great stuff. Really is.
This is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. I just wish that Paul and our other member, we'll have to urge them to watch this will be available on YouTube pretty soon.
Yeah, they should watch
So
it.
the goals from the 2019 housing production plan, there were 5 of them.
Wow.
Some of these could be essentially also be sort of consolidated down. My goal is not to give you more work to do or the town more work to do. It's like work smarter, not harder. And so a lot of these will be consolidated because this is consolidated from that original thing that I sent you, which was multiple pages.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you're kind of talking in 9 about just ways of revenue streams and money's gonna be tight coming up. And I was looking back at goal 3 and it talked about using town-owned parcels. How would the town be like? Would they own the parcel, build it up, and do the lease it out?
Not necessarily. And so part of this will be sort of like be doing a deep dive on all of the parcels that the town owns.
Okay.
Because it's easier to redevelop town-owned parcel, right? Because the town's the owner of them. The way that would work is that the town, if they determine that a particular site was a good site for housing, because there are competing needs, so not every site should be housing or would be housing. If there is a site that gets determined this would be a good site for housing, there would be sort of like a feasibility assessment that's done, and then the town would put it out on an RFP for someone to buy it.
Okay.
So the town would get the money, then the housing would get developed.
Okay.
The town themselves would not be.
That's
the
what I was
developer.
curious about. Okay.
So for the housing goals, goal 1 was meet and maintain the 10% state standard for affordable housing so that Abington is no longer vulnerable to 40B housing developments. Create and maintain a level of total affordable housing units that equals 10% of total year-round housing units. Now, that's sort of a placeholder now because Abington
Right.
is currently at 10%.
Right.
But as you say, it's a moving target.
It's a moving target. So
Yeah.
I will say probably in a goal somewhere, maintain a level of total affordable housing so that you're in right. And so if you need to build a couple of extra or whatever it is, but as of right now, that's not a hard and set fast goal because you're already at the top. Goal 2, establish a municipal affordable housing trust to support local housing initiatives. That was done. Goal 3, create affordable housing units through adaptive reuse of existing buildings and town-owned properties. So really that's adaptive reuse of current sites. So converting a school, an underutilized school or vacant school to housing. Or if there's another underutilized, like, I don't know, factory building or warehouse or whatever, an office building, converting that to, that's adaptive reuse.
It's too bad we couldn't get our hands on New England art.
Know what you're gonna say.
When
Knew
you talk
were
about
gonna say that.
reaching the 10% and we talk about like these developments going up and they require a certain amount of affordable, is there I know it's not coming up yet, but is there a cap that we could, if we wanted to require more affordable in a unit, can we do that?
Not as part of not that you would have to under 40B because that's a different process. If the town of Abington wanted to potentially pursue inclusionary zoning,
Right.
that would be a way to do it.
Okay.
Because the town, because these are market rate units, so if a developer comes in and wants to build, I don't know, 10 luxury condos or rental units, a 1-bedroom renting at, I don't know, $3,500, let's just say. And you want to maximize the affordability of that, you could set a standard inclusionary zoning that says 10% of units are affordable to households earning whatever percent of the area median income. Of that 10 units, one of them would be affordable.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's different than 40B, right? Because it's sort of state mandated. This would be sort of like a local option or a local preference for affordability. Again, if the town wanted to go that way.
Well, I mean, I would love to see more housing-related town meeting warrant articles on the floor.
Like, they haven't got any bids on the schools, and I know last time we talked about other reasons. So obviously, if we wrote into the contract, like, there needs to be more affordable housing, it's not gonna help us get a buyer. But in general, if we did have buyers interested, I was just curious if we can add, like, you can buy this land, develop it up at X number, need to be affordable more than, the 10% mandated or something like that.
No, I mean, it's, of course, no schools off the table for
Yeah.
a while. But
Yeah.
And then goal 4, promote a diversity of housing options in Abington that meet the needs of a changing and aging population and promote a socioeconomically diverse population. That's in here, a couple of ways and different goals. And then 5, prioritize affordable housing for infill development on abandoned and vacant properties. And then obviously there are strategies attached to each of these goals.
Laurie Muncy and Lisa Sullivan, who wrote that report, I was there when it was done, they did a good job. But you'll have to tell your boss that we appreciate that you've created more goals than they did.
Like I said, this is sort of a, it's a process. And so what I wanted to do before I finalized the goals, be with you all to sort of like lay out what's currently being thought about so that if I was proposing something, like if there was a goal here to, I don't know, mandate or pursue zoning changes that would allow, I don't know, 10 stories by right? That's probably going to be problematic. And so this provided an opportunity for, as you're reading this, say like, well, we shouldn't go down that road. Inclusionary zoning sometimes can be that conversation. But if inclusionary zoning is something that you, as the Affordable Housing Trust and the town, wants to sort of like look at, now that you're sort of like, have some flexibility outside of 40B, that's something that can be put in. Just because
talked
it's
about
not,
that.
just because it's in the housing plan does not mean it's something that has to be pursued or will be pursued either.
It's like Abington, I think max, allowed to max, I should know, is planning board. But it's like 3 stories or something, but the one over at Zero Summer Street, because it's a 40B, is 5 stories, right? And, as I talked about that earlier, the proposal behind the pickleball courts, that's limited because it's MBTA zoning, and planning board wrote into that, that's 3 stories max and stuff like that, so it's interesting.
We talked about inclusionary zoning back a couple of times. We brought it up on the committee, but it kind of, I don't think we quite knew how to go about doing that, and making that, because there's
What's
places
the
being built.
pushback generally to try to do inclusionary housing? Like what would hold it up?
The development.
Yeah.
Because you need development in order to
Just like who
get
would, the developers that would buy it, or
No, just the development.
Okay.
In some, I'm not saying because I haven't had this conversation yet, but there are communities that I've worked with, or in my sort of career, that don't want the inclusionary zoning because you're changing the zoning to allow additional out, right?
Yeah.
And so largely inclusionary zoning does not get triggered by the development of a single family home, right? So it's multi-family housing, 2 or more units, depending on what your trigger point is. So that's sort of like development that might be considered outside of the, I don't know, or
Community, I think
community,
those-
yeah. But there are different ways to approach it, right? There are some communities that sort of like mandate, I don't know, on-site affordable units, and so if it's 10%, that a 10-unit building is getting proposed and built, that 1 unit has to be built within the footprint of that development. Other communities allow payment in lieu of,
Right.
which is money that then gets sent to the Affordable Housing Trust or some other CPA funds or whatever, that can then be used for down payment or other programs. And so different towns do it different ways. I think the delay in sort of potentially exploring inclusionary zoning in Abington, from what I understand, is that Abington had MBTA communities go in front of town meeting, and then ABUs go in front of town meeting, and the town didn't want to also do inclusionary zoning at the same time
Right.
of either of those.
But in the meantime, there was development going
Yeah.
on, and we're like, well, they're,
So now
They're
that you're
not
sort of
affordable.
behind those things,
Yeah.
this could be maybe a
Yeah.
time to sort of explore it if that's
Well, I'd like to see this as part of this report, Jason.
Inclusionary?
Yeah, I'd like to see.
Yeah.
I want to give you an
they got it
example.
under long-term.
I want to give you an example. If you go up Center Street, across where like Franny Refrigeration is, there's a house. It's built, Glen LaPointe built it. It's right on the street. You ever notice that? It's a brand new house. It's like 10 units.
Yeah.
And it's right on the street. Now that, I was talking to Sean Riley, Sean
Yeah.
Riley, town moderator, at our last planning board meeting, and he said that was built because that was mandated under the MBTA Community Act, that type of housing in that district. And you must be aware of this, Jason. Take a look at it sometime. It's a brand new
Where is
house. It's on 123. Near Franny Refrigeration,
Okay.
near Island Grove. It's right there.
Okay, yeah.
And it's built right on the street. Well, I asked Sean that question. It's a good question. I'm always asked that question.
Yeah.
And that was built mandated.
As you're
by-
driving on 123 towards the Honeydew Dunks and
Yeah,
Target, it's
before
on the
that.
left-hand side, and the door's
Yeah.
facing side. Like it's built
Yep.
sideways.
Yep,
All right,
it's
yep.
built sideways.
Yep. I
But
know
it's
what
like
you're talking about.
right on the street, it's like right there.
So I know anybody watched the planning board meeting, I saw that, but I'd like you to put that in there, please.
Inclusionary?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would.
Yeah, that was the perfect example.
And do we have any wiggle? I know this is gonna come before the planning board, right? And selectmen?
Yes, so the 2 entities that formally have to approve and adopt the housing production plan are the planning board and the select board.
How much time do we have? Because there's 2 members who aren't present here tonight. And what I'd like you to do is scan this or make this available. And we could send it to Paul and the other guy who aren't here tonight and ask their comments, because we've had a chance to make
Yeah, if you
comments.
guys email us the
Yeah.
copy.
But I'd like to see if, if they had any comments. Now, Paul is in construction, and the other young man is interested and stuff like that. So I'd like to see if they have any comments before you know, we send this off to other people. So if you could do that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think Liz did send an email, I think, to someone connected to the select board to try to get me on the agenda. I'm not quite sure. I think it might have been November. I'm not exactly sure,
You've
but
gone through Nancy Hurst on that, right?
I can figure it out.
Yeah. You go, Nancy Hurst is the gatekeeper, and you have to go through her to get on the.
Because this, in order to remain compliant, the housing production plan has to be submitted to EOHLC, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, by the end of the year.
Okay, so we'll see that big, thick document similar to the 2019.
Yes.
Okay,
I don't know how close I am to actually being the same page count, but it's probably close.
but you got more goals.
Well, hopefully I'll be on the select board, and like this is something that's very passionate to me. So if there's anything I can do to help, or you know anything, feel free to reach out.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I think ultimately, if I peer down the goals a little bit, essentially the three that will probably remain are the ones sort of around public housing, 40Y zoning and smaller homes, home ownership, and inclusionary zoning.
yeah. And so this has been great. Did you get?
Yeah.
You think you got some feedback from us on it?
Yes, I did.
Good. We didn't. I always ask, because when I was doing this, and I had to go before town meeting, and I've been active in my grad school. When the students were doing presentation, I'd always ask them to explain the acronyms and stuff like that, because you know, when you're in grad school, I was working for Old Colony, and I would peek at acronyms and explain the acronyms. so whenever
I've
we have
worked
any good
in development and planning long enough that I can have full conversations using just acronyms. And never say anything that's
I
not
remember that.
more than 3 letters.
Kathy, you know, she was married to a planner for a million years. I was a professional planner 36 years, and I'd be talking, and Kathy would say, "Speak in English."
You know, we did also request a list of available land.
Yeah,
We never,
could we get that?
we would never
What
respond.
did you request?
A list of available land that
Like tax
conceivably-
title
yeah,
land and
conceivably could be
what's
built on.
available,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
Okay.
but,
yeah. Could you get that for us?
Awesome.
I think when Ellen was on,
Yeah, is there
we
someone
talked about
that
that.
works in the town hall that would have that? Like,
Yeah, you can go. I've done this. You go to the assessors and stuff like that, and you could request a list. When I worked for OCPC, I had to do that for a lot of master plans and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought Ellen did that,
Yeah.
but we never, I
I'd love
don't
to see
think she
that
got a
if you could do
response.
that.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can try to include it specifically in the housing production plan too.
Well, you know, my church is injecting Church of State. United Church of Christ Tammy. We're looking potentially to sell our property, which could be housing, a big white church on, and you know, buy a piece of land and build a new church on it. So,
So I will say,
according to town zoning, you could build a church about anything.
yeah, next steps are just timing. I have like I said, I'm working with the town of Whitman also on a 40R zoning district. There's a whole big I have to write the zoning code for that, and you know, the preliminary application that gets approved by the state and all of this. So that's my sort of priority 1 over the next 2 weeks, because there's a select board hearing that has to be part of that, and I'm on the clock for that. With that said, I will sort of do the updates on, because I don't want to sort of propose this and so not include the updates that I got from you all, and so I'll work on this over the next couple of weeks, and then no later than September 30th send it to everyone for sort of like a final review, because then I can work it into the final plan, which I think I'm about 80% done with the housing production plan outside of the goals and strategies. Share it with you early October, the plan itself, and that therefore I'm still on track to sort of present to the planning board and select board to have it approved by the end of the year.
So you think you might have something
Sounds
for us by the October meeting?
What's your October meeting?
Okay, what are we doing?
Yeah,
We're going to talk about future meeting dates. Today is the 8th, which is what, is this the second? Second, yeah, because planning board met last Tuesday. What's the second Monday in October?
Second Monday? The 13th.
Columbus Day.
Oh, we can't do it that. You guys, and we know that there's a How about, could we do it on Wednesday, the 13th,
The
The
15th.
15th?
15th?
15th? Could we do it for October 15th?
I can, I guess.
Okay, October
Yep.
15th, Wednesday. Now, I wouldn't schedule Joanne's presentation on the Alzheimer's stuff at the same meeting that Jason's presenting, but I still want to do it, I still want her to have it, so maybe we could have her come in November or something.
Gonna do 5?
5 o'clock, yeah, 5 o'clock, and I'll work with Nancy Hurst to get the room. Our usual meeting space wasn't open tonight, but I got this room,
10, 15, 5 o'clock?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Yeah.
On the 15th.
Yes.
I'll put that on my calendar as the deadline to have the draft HPP done, so you can, I'll send it to you before that, so
That'd
that
be
we can talk
fantastic.
about it.
So I can,
Awesome.
yeah, as, you know, Housing Trust meets tomorrow night. Planning Board meets on the first Monday of the month, and Chair of the Planning Board, I'm active in the Housing Trust, so this all ties together, you know. It's a small town, we're all
So for
on
my
all boards.
purposes, I will aim to have the draft housing production plan done by October 8th, so that you have a week to sort of review it between the 8th and your meeting
Sounds
in
good.
October.
Jason, you're amazing, can I say that?
Very good.
You're doing Whitman, and you're doing Abington.
Well, I have 6 projects that I'm leading at the moment, all with multiple deadlines, so it's a good thing I'm type A and super organized.
Oh, there you go. Thank you very much.
I just want to mention, we talked about future meeting dates.
Thank you.
I just
Thank you,
want to mention, thank you, Jason, be in touch. One of the items on the, so we did the future meeting dates.
Yep.
Habitat for Humanity project. Everyone knows, well, if you watch these meetings, that Abington is gonna have a Habitat for Humanity project on Plymouth Street, here, what is it, Summer Street, Plymouth Street, and Summer Street?
Plymouth Street.
Plymouth Street, it's right near the corner of Summer Street, right? And it's a small house, and I checked, and Habitat for Humanity that's gonna be responsible for that is the South Shore Habitat for Humanity. Now, there's the Plymouth one, and this is the one that, in the Brockton area, but it'll do Abington. And I checked as far as projects go, and right now they're doing things in Cohasset and Easton. Abington isn't on the list right
Not
now.
on the list yet.
No,
Okay.
but we, you know, I'd ask you guys to monitor this, and I'll be monitoring this, and if I hear anything between now, I personally want to volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They said they were going to put information out, they were gonna try to
Yeah,
get the community involved,
Once
and they were
finish
gonna
the current project.
advertise it, but they were finishing up on the Cohasset properties,
Yeah.
I think, so.
so
I'm sure we'll hear
I-
when they're ready to.
I think it'd be cool if we could find a way to get like a lot of the community involved and
Yeah.
helping that.
And I think that's what they plan on
Yeah.
doing, they're gonna be
Yeah.
advertising.
I think it'd be
So-
cool if, you know, people who serve on town boards, be a select board, could be anything, you know, get involved in it, because a lot of communities, people, you know, do that. I've got a hard hat and steel-toe work shoes from my days at OCPC.
They'll find us something for everybody to do.
But I want to volunteer, they asked me if I wanted to volunteer for the others, and I said, no, I want to do Abington when it comes up.
Yeah.
So I understood, so,
Okay,
that would be great. This has been a great meeting tonight.
Yeah.
yeah, very good,
And,
lot of
you know,
information.
Next meeting, October 15th, 5 PM. And
Yep.
Jason's gonna give us a draft of the complete plan by October 8th, and we can
Yep.
review it, and then we'll have them on Wednesday. And again, I'd like to have Joanne Ziegman from OCBC present on the Alzheimer's Ready Communities in maybe our November or December meeting and stuff like that. So
Sounds good.
I just want to have things to discuss and people get excited about it
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's great. So
Sounds good.
you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching this tonight. And we're just trying to keep things going with housing in Abington. So thanks again. Good night, everyone.